So
Yes,
welcome, Roberto. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today. Can you please briefly introduce yourself and your career to date?
yeah. Hi, thank you very much, Jessica. I'm happy to talk to you and your audience. My name is Roberto Sussman. I am a senior researcher at the National University of Mexico, Institute for Nuclear Sciences. My background is physics, theoretical physics, but I work also in applied physics and mathematics and so on. And recently, since the COVID pandemic, I started also publishing in issues related to aerosols, for example, bioaerosols that transmit COVID, and also with aerosols of electronic cigarette. I am a consumer. I am an ex-smoker. I smoked for more than 40 years, and now I use electronic cigarettes. So, uh, and for some time, I was also an advocate in a consumer institution, but I left that because I want to focus on research. And I don't want, if I do advocacy, it's my own personal. I'm not associated to any vaping consumer association. And I have published quite a few papers on the aerosol of electronic cigarettes. Especially, we have done several comprehensive reviews on the literature because when people make assessments about the toxicity of the aerosol, you have to see what are their sources. And what we have done, we have already revised close to 100 studies in emissions of different types. And this is important because if the aerosol of electronic cigarettes was not significantly less toxic than tobacco smoke, then the whole edifice of tobacco harm reduction will crumble, right? We are all what we do, trying to convince people to quit smoking and to use less risky, more safer products is based on the fact that they are safer. We have to emphasize that. And that's why we have revised the literature on emissions, because some papers, and we all know that, they report that there is formaldehyde and metals and so on. So we have to see if those articles that report high toxicity are well made, because if these studies were correct, then we would be in trouble. So we have to check that. And so far, the results of having tested a lot of studies uh, it shows that every single study that detects toxic compounds, whether they're organic or metal, all of them that detect too high toxic content, all these studies are methodologically flawed.
Mm.
They have serious methodological flaws. And conversely, all studies that are well done, that their experimental design is correct and satisfies quality conditions, all of them report very low toxicity and much lower than tobacco smoke. And this is important because this is the basis of tobacco harm reduction.
Thank you very much, Roberto. I think you're doing some very important fundamental science and you explained that really well. So thank you. But recently you were involved in a very concerning case of potential editorial misconduct and censorship in academic publishing, which was really unfortunate. Can you please explain the situation and what happened?
Yeah, here, because all the correspondence in peer review is confidential. So I can describe the crime, but I cannot identify the criminal, right? So I cannot say which journal, or I cannot say exactly what the editors or reviewers said, etc. But I can describe the situation. This is an article, this is a review. We are reviewing studies, the so-called preclinical studies. What are the studies? They expose cells, cell lines, and rodents. They expose them to e-cigarette aerosol to see what are the biological responses of these systems, these biological systems. But it is very important that these systems are exposed to aerosols that are not predeterminately toxic, right? Because if I expose mice or rats or cells to an aerosol that would be unpalatable and repellent to humans, then the biological outcomes that we find are not reliable, are not applicable, right? So we revised 40 studies, preclinical studies that used the same exposure system. It was a computerized exposure, right? And what we found is that the aerosol that they generated is overheated and is also full of toxins. But the authors of these studies are biologists or toxicologists or maybe medical doctors. They are not aware of how to generate an aerosol. They follow protocols that are not applicable to the device that they are using. They are using to generate this um, to generate the aerosol, high-powered sub-ohm devices, but they puff them with a very small, inappropriate airflow. A human user, doing that, imagine these very powerful devices, and you puff them as if you were puffing a joule or a pod. It would burn your mouth. Why? Because the powerful device generates a lot of vapor. So you need a very strong inhalation, the deep to long, in order to evacuate, cool, and to cool this aerosol, this vapor, right? If the airflow is not sufficient, then this hot vapor accumulates and it produces a lot of toxins. But it's an artificial way because human users will not do that, right? So we discovered that and we made a review and it is amazing how three toxicological journals rejected it. Some of them rejected it outright. They said there is no scientific content, and it was rejected. So we tried another one, and we had referees that did not address the technical arguments. They simply said, no, 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 the authors are speculating and are doing assumptions taken as facts and so on. Now, this study is based on our own experimental tests, which are reported there and have been published, right? And they say, no, no scientific content, and they are speculating and making assumptions. So the fourth journal accepted it and sent it to review. We got three reviewers, two of them very positive. One of them was saying, great, publish it now. Another one wanted some minor corrections, not on the technical issues, but on the organization of the review. And another one rejected it, but with only one line. Anyway, but then before we sent our response to the reviewers. We were expecting their response. And then what we get is a letter from the editor rejecting it, justifying it with a single paragraph, and completely misrepresenting the opinions of the reviewers. So we appealed this decision. The journal accepted our appeal and reconsidered the rejection. And they said, okay, submit again and we will check it. We submitted again, and after 2 weeks, we get the same rejection. In fact, we get a rejection that is even derogatory. It has a phrase like saying, your research is not important for this journal. And that's it's amazing because the review was not even revised. It was revised by the reviewers, but the editor completely ignored the and simply rejected twice because once we submitted again, it was the same rejection, right? So this is I think this is editorial misconduct because it is a rejection that is not based on the arguments and it ignores two of the three reviewers, right?
Yeah. I agree. It is misconduct. And do you believe that this rejection has been influenced by external pressures, political bias, anything like that?
Yes, because the editor uh, suddenly we get a message from the assistant editor saying the academic editor, because you know there are hierarchies among the editors. There's the academic editor who decides, and then there are managing and assistant editors that communicate with you. You never know who is the academic editor. So we were told the academic editor is not happy with your conflict of interest declaration, right? I have no conflict of interest because I'm a full-time academic, never received a penny from any industry. I don't need to. I'm a full-time researcher. And my colleague, Sebastian, he works in a private company that does quality testing for electronic cigarettes, but he doesn't sell them. The company is not funded by the vapor industry, but he declared that conflict of interest. He declared it openly. And then the editor didn't believe us, but you know, editors have the right to request authors to clarify their conflict of interest. They're entitled to do that. But they have to do it in a respectful way,
Yeah.
like asking. But this editor was accusing us that we were not, that it was not believable that we have some, you know, I cannot describe the letter, but it's quite offensive.
Mm,
Nevertheless, we repeated, we said, this study did not receive any funding. Categorically, we say that. And then we say, and when we say, we again describe our, and then 5 days later, the rejection comes. So we think that this issue, that this look, the editor could have said, I'm not satisfied by your declaration, so whatever. He could have said that. Or he could have said, unless you declare this, the article does not proceed. He
mm,
didn't do anything like that. He simply rejected. And this is an abuse of power.
mm.
And this goes against the protocols of, you know, this against the ethics of the peer reviewing process, which,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
the issue and the concerns you will have then, what kind of censorship, what kind of impact does this censorship have on scientific progress then? Because otherwise, how can we progress if we're censoring what science is published? Do you not think?
yeah, absolutely. Look,
Yeah.
everything can be discussed. Like if somebody says you have a conflict of interest, I say, well, where are the proofs? You say I'm funded by the industry. Where are the payments? You know, I,
Yeah.
I I'm absolutely confident I have not been funded by the industry.
Yeah.
And, and my word has to be taken. If the editor has proofs or whatever, then
Mm.
let's see the proofs.
Yeah.
but the editor didn't have any proof. And his reaction, well, her reaction, we don't know if he was a man or a woman. The reaction of the editor was simply to impose a rejection that is not based on any argument.
And do you think that this is an issue that's common to harm reduction or tobacco harm reduction because of the sensitivity of the topic?
No, yes, not only in harm reduction, what I'm telling you happens in climate change,
Yeah.
in COVID, in any issue that becomes political, politicized.
Hmm.
You have agendas, and the agendas fight each other. And I come from the world of physics. We also have this type of problems in physics. I have also had problems with editors, and I have had articles that were unfairly rejected, and I have appealed to them and so on. The difference in physics is that discussion is based in arguments and data. The main conflict is not the data is supreme. The problem is how do you interpret the data? And this is where conflicts happen. So this
Hmm.
type of, I'm not new, I'm a veteran researcher. I have had many conflicts with editors, but it is in physics, it is resolved in terms of data and arguments. Here, there was no argument. It was simply a rejection.
Absolutely. And in terms of just the last couple of minutes, in terms of solutions and next steps, so given your experience, what advice would you give to researchers who face similar editorial roadblocks? And do you see, as part of that question, do you see space for alternative publishing models?
Yeah, look, what we what we should do, like this is happening to me and my colleague, but it might be happening to others, right? So as long as, because the correspondence is confidential, I I don't want to go to X and to Facebook and to say these things. I don't want to do that. I would like to do something more institutional. But the first step is that we should communicate with colleagues or advertise what happened to us without any, uh, you know, banging your chest or insulting or anything like that, just in a very reasonable way, and following the confidentiality agreements, right? And to advertise this, what happened, and to see I have already discovered that this has happened with several colleagues in harm reduction. And then we should get together and try to see what you can do. It's very difficult because it is a two-word, it is a sword with two blades. On one hand, confidentiality is important, but on the other hand, confidentiality can be abusive. So I really don't know exactly what to do because I'm not trained for this. I don't have the training to see what you can do. But I know that there are people who know that. Especially it would be very useful as a recommendation for better publishing practices that you have several steps of compliance in the journal that we are involved in this, there's only one level. You have the right to appeal, and if your case is dismissed, that's it. You have no more opportunities, and you never know if there is an authority that is above the editor. The editor, we don't know if there is somebody on top of this editor, right?
Mm. Yeah.
The journals do not provide this information. And this is different from physics. In physics,
Mm.
you have several levels of complaining. The first
Mm.
level, you can go to the
Interesting.
next one, and there are other ones that you can
Mm.
complain. And it is clear how to go to these venues, right? Here, there's nothing. It is only once. If so now, because it has been rejected twice, we have no other way, and journals should correct that. They should
Mm.
specify what can you do when the first round of appeals does not work, that you have another one.